future in your lives. So we tear the ribbon to symbolize that. On a more metaphorical level, for me, the tearing of the clothing, and these days we use a symbolic piece of clothing, the ribbon, is a way of symbolizing the opening of our heart. In a few hours, we will have opened the earth and put Joan's physical remains inside. But right now, you're opening your heart, so her spiritual legacy can enter. And it will mix with all the other souls that have entered into your hearts, particularly Leonard's. And they'll be together there. And you will carry them with you. And they will continue to speak to you and teach you as long as you need them. And sometime in the future, and I hope it's a distant future, they'll be the people you love opening their hearts to accept your spirit, which has already been enriched by all those who have come before. So this way there's a continuity, at least in this world, of this teaching, the spirit, the joy, the love, all that which is Joan's. So, we say a blessing, acknowledging the importance of this. And the blessing goes, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan ha'amet. We bless you, or we praise you, or acknowledge you, dear God, sovereign of all there is, for you are the one who decrees our reality. And then we say the words from the book of Job, Adonai not lakach, Adonai natan, Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. The eternal gives, the eternal takes. We praise the eternal's name. That really means for everything there's a beginning, and for everything there's an end. But we don't praise beginnings and ends. We praise everything that goes in between the 84 years today of Joan's life. We give thanks to, we try to remember, we try to cement it to our hearts. So let us tear the ribbons. Traditionally, we will be wearing these ribbons for the next 30 days, except on Shabbat, that is Saturday.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services here today, we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
So, welcome. My name is Louis Yaron, and I'm the Rabbi Emeritus of Lionsgate. And it's such a great honor to be here. And I want to thank Joan's family for extending me this honor. Joan and Leonard have been part of my life probably as long as I've been here in South Jersey doing my job. I got to know them through Len's parents, who were residents at Lionsgate. And before that, through their activities in the community. And Len I knew from the radio from high school. It's hard to imagine a world without the Krivys, now without Joan. But I'm just one of the thousands upon thousands of people Joan touched during her lifetime. And my sense of loss is nothing compared to yours, those who knew her and loved loved her and were nurtured by her, and whose world was full of her presence. So I want to really thank you. Thank Bob and Julie, is that JD sometimes? And your children, Amanda and Adam. And I also want to thank Howard and Sophie, your kids, Hannah and Marissa, for giving me this opportunity and letting me learn a little bit more about your mother, mother-in-law, grandmother, your Cece, in ways that I didn't. So, I'd like to begin with a meditation, just to set an intention for today. And this is from the 20th century Rabbi Milton Steinberg. He wrote, "One wears out one's mind in study, and yet has more mind with which to study. One gives away one's heart in love, and yet has more heart to give away. One perishes out of pity for a suffering world, and is stronger therefore. So it is possible at one and the same time to hold on to life and to let go." Adam lehevel dama. A human being is like a momentary breeze. Yamav kitzel over. A person's days are but a passing shadow. But boker yatzis v'chalaf, at dawn, life blossoms and renews itself. Li'erev yimolel v'yavesh. At dusk it withers and dries up. Tesheve nosh adata, you return a person to dust. V'tomer shuvu v'nei adam. And you say, return, O children of humanity. We turn our thoughts to yesterday, to a world that lives only in our memory. As we recall the days gone by, we know that the past is irretrievable. Yet, through the gift of memory, we recapture treasured moments and images. We are thankful for the happiness we knew with those no longer here, with whom we lived and laughed and loved. We praise the eternal wellspring of life, who links yesterday to tomorrow. We affirm that despite all the tragedy bound up with living, it is still good to be alive. We understand that there can be no love without loss, no joy without sorrow. May we have the courage to accept the all of life, the love and the loss, the joy and the sorrow, as we remember Joan today. Life is a series of changes. Things happen. Would it be easier if you want to come forward? And if you can't hear me, I'll have to talk louder. I'm good at that. So, let me try again. Life is a series of changes. We go from one thing to another, We face new challenges at every turn. In some way, life is unpredictable. Often we are disappointed, but often pleasantly surprised. The sense of the changing of time is expressed in the book Kohelet, the book of the preacher, traditionally attributed to Solomon, in which the author writes, L'kol zaman et l'kol chafetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a season, a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. Death complements birth. They form the bookends of life. Resting between them is a life filled with an abundance of things. To see, to feel, to touch, to taste, to understand, to do. There is a time to plant, envisioning a future, and a time to harvest, seeing one's dreams fulfilled. There is a time to kill, weeding a garden, breaking a fall, stopping aggression, completing a task, closing a chapter, and a time to heal, binding a wound, blotting a tear, forgiving a mistake, returning home. There's a time to break down the walls that confine us, setting us free, and a time to build bridges that connect us, binding us together. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh. And sometimes weeping and laughing arrive as one when memory brings joy and absent sorrow. There is a time to mourn, marching to the solemn beat of a funeral procession, and a time to dance, turning and spinning, as at a wedding. There is a time to cast away stones, clearing a field for planting, and a time to gather stones together, building a house or covering a grave. There is a time to hold a loved one tightly, never wanting to let go, and a time to release one's embrace and set one's dear one free. There is a time to seek, looking for answers, chasing a goal, pursuing ambition, and a time to lose, accepting failure, forgiving wrongs, moving on. There's a time to keep as we build our lives and fill our homes, and a time to cast away as we let go of all that which holds us back. There is a time to rend, tearing our garments in grief, and a time to sew, mending them together, but the seam will always remain. There is a time to keep silence, listening to our hearts, and a time to speak, sharing our thoughts with others. There is a time to love, bringing close those who enrich our lives, and a time to hate, distancing ourselves from those who diminish us. There is a time of strife, because no life is without struggle, and a time of peace, when all is done, when all is complete, when our days are full, when our story is told, when we are all together, when the circle is whole. Hevel hevelim amar kohelet, hevel hevelim hakol havel. Moment upon moment, everything is but for a moment, says Kohelet, the preacher. So let us cherish this moment, each moment, and all moments we share and share. as I read this in preparation for today, I thought of Joan. In some way, she experienced all these seasons. She had a vision of the future. And looking at her grandchildren, I could see that future was fulfilled. Just hearing about what all you are doing shows me, how much your grandmother's spirit lives inside of you. Joan, as I knew her, was a person who could reach out, who could get people to expand themselves. Part of her, the core of what she and Len did together was to enable people to get beyond what they thought were their limitations. She was able to help them find what they needed inside and then show them ways to pursue it in ways that would work. And in doing that, she was also a bridge builder, bringing people together, helping them find new places. Joan? Joan was a planter. She could clear a field. She could make room for people to be who they were going to be. And she was also a builder. She built a business. She built a family. She built a life. I don't have a sense that Joan was really good at getting rid of things. But she was excellent at collecting things. And one of the joys of going to her house was seeing sort of their life, their journeys, their wanderings, their discoveries all over the walls. And then getting a tour and having the explanation, the story behind each one. And I can tell you personally, you couldn't do that on one trip. You had to go back a number of times just to see a little bit of the collection. Joan was a good listener. She could listen to people. She could hear people. I think her skill in counseling came from her ability to listen. Maybe that was the musicologist in her. To be a musicologist, you have to listen. You have to be able to hear things, subtle distinctions. But she was able to bring that skill in dealing with people, hear what their souls were saying. And she could speak. She was a communicator, great writer. And she could put into words what she heard, giving voice to other people. She was a person who knew how to love. You know that. That's why you're here. But she was also a person who knew what was wrong, what you didn't need to do, what you needed to distance yourself from. She knew what was wrong and how to avoid it. Life was particularly hard for her in the last year, basically, since her beloved Leonard died. And it was hard. They were really as one. In some way expressing that biblical vision that when two souls come together, two people come together, they become basar echad, one being. And with Len's death, she lost half of herself. That she could continue for another year running on half her cylinders is remarkable. Shows her strength and also shows the power of the love everyone here brought to her to keep her going. Moment upon moment, everything is but for a moment. We only live in the present. But our present is informed by all that has gone before and is enriched by our dreams for the future. May Joan's memory be with you at every moment, particularly at the moments of joy, when you want to share her wit and her laughter, and in moments of sorrow, when you want to share her love and support. So let us bless all those moments. Let us hold them close to our hearts. May they always be a source of strength and blessing for all. Adonai miyagur v'ohalecha miyishkan b'har kodshecha holek tamid v'oel tzedek v'devet emet v'livavo. Dear God, who may enter your temple, who may worship at your holy mountain, one who obeys God in everything and always does what is right, whose words are sincere, whose words are true, who does not slander others. This one is a person who does not wrong her friends, nor spreads rumors about her neighbors. This is a person who despises those things God rejects, but honors those things that reflect the glory of the eternal. This is a person who always does what is promised, no matter how much it may cost. This one does not take advantage of the needy, nor can this one be bribed to testify against the innocent. Whoever does these things will always be secure. Well, I've said a lot of words, but we have some really special words from Brianna. So I'd like to invite you up, Brianna, and talk to us. Tell us a little bit about your grandma, your Cece.
I'm nervous, so I'm probably just going to move from this. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming out today to celebrate such a wonderful and unique life. I'm Joan's eldest granddaughter, Brianna. My grandmother always held a special place in my heart. To me, she was Cece. However, to some of you, she was Joan, some Dr. Krivy, some Juana, some Joni, and the list goes on. Each of these names encapsulates a different aspect of her personality. As Dr. Krivy, she was a well-renowned educational consultant, writer, teacher, and radio show host. As Juana, she was a hysterical, wise, and witty friend. As a mother to my aunt and father, she was kind and loving. To my mother, she was more than a mother-in-law. They were also very supportive friends. As Cece, she was a role model, an entertainer, an art teacher, and a constant source of love. Cece loved embodying each of these aspects of her personality. She especially adored being the loving wife to my grandfather, Dr. Len Krivy. I'm sure that everyone here can attest to how incredible their romance was. They moved together gracefully and at the beat of their own drum. They truly were each other's perfect match. They conquered the world of education together hand in hand, Joan, the creative and personable one, and Len, the wise and analytical. They saw a need for educational consulting, so they started the business. Cece was an incredible writer. Her talent allowed them to publish 2 books, Learn While You Sleep and Falling Off the Ivory Tower, as well as thousands of newspaper articles. Together, they gave lectures on schools and schooling, along with how to optimize one's financial aid package. She was unbelievably gifted. She skipped many grades in school and was admitted to college at the early age of 16. True to form, she was always a trailblazer. There's an old saying that behind every great man, there's a great woman. That was my grandmother. To list a couple more of her accolades, she was president of the Board of Trustees at Camden County College, owner of Joan of Art, which was a small arts and crafts business. And what I think she was most proud of was the guidance that she gave to countless young people through the next stage of their academic lives. She was a woman of strong convictions. She marched in the civil rights movement, fought for women's equality, and when JFK was shot, she went to Washington, D.C. to mourn with our country. While all of these accomplishments are worth mentioning and also extremely impressive, what I think was most special about my grandmother was her free spirit. When I was growing up, I loved looking at her, not just because of her beauty, but because of how colorful she was, both inside and out. On the outside, she wore vibrant makeup, funky clothing, and heavy jewelry. However, her most memorable feature was her eccentric personality. She was an extremely giving person and would do anything for those who she cared about. My grandparents would encourage their health aides to use their credit card for gas money and groceries to feed their families. They also donated a lot of their time and money to countless charities. Cece loved people and left an impression on everyone that met her. I was at an event last year and a woman from a store where she used to shop came up to me because she recognized my last name and told me how hysterical and sweet my grandmother was. Growing up, my sister and I were lucky enough to have spent a lot of time around her and my grandfather. She always took interest in our interests. When we went to plays, took trips to the art store, where she would consistently buy us Sharpies against my mother's wishes, which my sister and I then would draw on our fireplace. And Cece would think it was art. And ate many delicious meals at the country club. When we were younger, we spent many nights painting with acrylic paint, which were then followed by her washing our hands with Brillo pads to hide the evidence from our parents, which really hurt. As I got older, she was always there to listen to me and guide me. Whether it was an issue with friends or boys, she always knew what to say. She taught me how to be a good friend. She would tell me that friendship is like a savings account. Over the years, you make lots of deposits, which are like good memories. And that every once in a while there's a withdrawal, but overall friendships have value. She taught me how to have perseverance. When our family was going through a difficult time, she told us that life is like a hurdle race, and as long as the hurdles aren't too high and too close together, and you can clear them, you will be fine. She taught me how to be confident. She very seriously told me that due to the undeniable powers of the Krivy sex appeal, we are the most beautiful women in the room at all times. And my sister and cousin and aunt and mom can attest to that. There's much more I could say, but I don't think they will let me stay up here until tomorrow morning, so I'd just like to say how lucky I am to have had such a wonderful role model as my grandmother. My grandmother wouldn't want us to be sad. Rather, she would want us to celebrate her life and accomplishments. She would always say to my grandfather, "Leonard, my love, let's depart laughingly." So when we leave here today, let's try not to be heartbroken over such a tremendous loss, but rather think about all of the joyful memories she has left us with. As she would always say, it's not a goodbye, but a so long. So in her memory, try to remember a time she made you laugh and always remember her that way. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so very much. Wow. You captured your grandma. You should keep copies of that. Give it to everyone here. And I only have one correction. We'd love you to talk for a couple days about your grandma. And in fact, that's the real goal of what we tried to start here today, is start telling the story. Keeping it alive and telling it in your words. So all those memories you have of her continue to be vital. And hold her always close to your heart. So, since you were talking, Brianna, about names, there's a beautiful poem by the Israeli poet Zelda about names. L'kol ish yesh shem. Each of us has a name. L'kol ish yesh shem shenatan lo Elohim v'natu lo aviv imo. L'kol ish yesh shem shenatnu lo komato v'ofen kiyuko. We all have a name given by God and given by our parents. We all have a name given by our height and by the way we smile, and given by our manner of dress. We all have a name given by the mountains we climb and given by the walls which surround us. We all have a name given by the stars that guide us and given by those with whom we live. We all have a name given by our sins and given by our desires. We all have a name given by those who hate us and given by our love. We all have a name given by our moments of celebration and given by our daily grind. We all have a name given by the seasons of our years and given by what we cannot see. We all have a name given by the sea and given by our death. Perhaps the most well-known and powerful psalm of comfort is the 23rd Psalm. Mizmor David, ani roi lo etzad, v'ino desha yarabitzeni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai v'orek yamim. We now are coming to the end of this part of the day. We have one more prayer, and that's the prayer El Malei Rachamim, the prayer in which we ask God to cement Joan's memory into our heart. And before I ask you to sit up straight or stand up straight, whichever is most comfortable and safe for you, I'd like you to take a moment and think about Joan, think about all the wonderful things Brianna said about her, and create your own little memory. Perhaps that memory when she brought joy and laughter into your life. And when you have that, sit up straight, stand up straight, and we'll come to the El Malei Rachamim. it's always hard to be the first one to stand, I know. El Malay Rachamim. Shochain Bamromim. Hamitzay Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Shechina, B'ma'alot Kodeshim, B'toharim, K'zohar HaRakia Masirim, Ek Nishmat, Edith Shendel, Bat Isidore, Joan Krivy. Shahalcha Li'olama, Bavor Shenadut Tzedakah Ve'at Hazkara Nishmata, B'gan Eden Tiyeh Menuchata, Ana Bal HaRachamim, Hasderecha B'Seter Kenafecha Li'olamim, Utzur B'Tzur HaChaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, V'Tanuach B'Shalom Al Nishkava, V'Nomar Amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace and sadness the way of all things. May Joan's memory be a blessing for each and every one of us. May we never let the light of Joan's love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all her worthy and righteous deeds, so that Joan's memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. God is our source. God is our destination. God is our beginning. God is our end. May Joan's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share be not shattered in sorrow. And may Joan rest in peace in our hearts forever. And to this we say, Amen. Please be seated or relax. And once again, I want to thank you for the honor of being here, and also for all that you've told me.
May we have the pallbearers, please? And we would ask if you would all rise once more, please.
Yosef Esek Elyon, Uzel Shaddai, Yitronai. Amar Lironai, Maxil Mitzurati, Elohai Evtachval, Kihu Yatzelha Mipap Yakosh, Midever Kaviot, the Evrato, Yesek La, the Tachat Kenafav, Tekseh, Zina, Vizochera,